here's the ride that I'm about to ride. My #1 bucket list coaster, Steel Vengeance.
Workers take extra care when aligning the rails to guarantee a
I just rode this masterpiece behind me. I am going to be honest. Steel Vengeance here at Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. I believe it's the perfect roller coaster. Personally, I believe that this ride is the perfect roller coaster. I believe that Rocky Mountain Construction quite literally designed the perfect roller coaster here. I'm gonna get a ride on what looks to be one of the best coasters in Japan here, Eejanaika. This just looks like an absolutely wild ride. I've ridden X2 and I hear this one's even better. Guys, we just rode Eejanaika here at Fuji-Q Highland in Fuji-Yoshida, Japan.
That was the most scariest and intense roller coaster I've ever been on my entire life.
This might be one of the best, if not the best coasters I've ridden. And I've ridden like Iron Gwazi, Steel Vengeance. Those are my favorites. This might be the best coaster of the trip, and it was scary. Before I begin discussing this masterpiece of a coaster, I think it's necessary that I give a little lesson in amusement park history. In 1945, the amusement ride manufacturer Aero Development was founded in California. They built some of their first amusement park attractions in the late 40s and early 50s, and they contributed heavily to Disneyland's opening ride lineup in 1955. In 1959, they built the first tubular steel coaster, Matterhorn bobsleds at Disneyland Park, which revolutionized the way roller coasters were designed. They continued to build various coaster and non-coaster amusement rides, and eventually built the revolutionary Corkscrew at Knott's Berry Farm, the world's first modern coaster with an inversion. They continued to dominate the amusement industry throughout the 70s and 80s, and they eventually rebranded to Aero Dynamics in 1986. In 1989, they revolutionized the industry once again with Magnum XL 200 at Cedar Point, which served as the world's first hypercoaster, that is, the first coaster to reach at least 200 feet in height. Throughout the 90s and early 2000s, however, other manufacturers started to emerge and dominate the industry, such as Intamin as well as Bolliger and Mabillard, and Aero simply couldn't keep up. Their last hurrah would be quite possibly their best project ever developed, X at Six Flags Magic Mountain, later known as X2, which served as the world's first fourth dimension coaster. This ride opened in January of 2002, and just a month prior, Aero ended up filing for bankruptcy because of the ambitious project. Ultimately, Aero's assets were bought by the manufacturer S&S, and X's designer, Alan Schilke, became a designer for this company. If it were not for this acquisition, the fourth dimension coaster would have likely never caught on. But alas, S&S would go on to create two more. Therefore, in 2006, S&S built Eejanaika at Fuji-Q Highland in Fujiyoshida, Japan, with Alan Schilke designing the project. It opened on July 19th of that year, featuring a layout that is taller, faster, longer, and evidently wilder than its predecessor. Let's look at the stats for this ride. This S&S coaster reaches a maximum height of 249.3 feet or 76 meters, as well as a maximum speed of 78.3 miles per hour or 126 kilometers per hour. This makes it a very close second tallest and fastest coaster in the park, just behind its neighboring Togo hypercoaster, Fujiyama. The ride has a track length of 3,782.8 feet, or 1,153 meters, and it has a near vertical angle of descent of 89 degrees. The track experiences 3 inversions, although the ride vehicles perform their own flips throughout the layout. The ride also accomplishes about 3.7 vertical Gs, making it undeniably an intense coaster experience. Now let's discuss the ride experience and layout. Boarding the ride takes a little bit of time since this ride's operations are infamously slow, and the overemphasis on safety in the ride station doesn't really help. Eventually, when riders board the ride, they leave the station facing backwards and enter a turnaround into the ride's lift hill. Although this lift hill is a very lengthy one, it provides amazing views of the landscape surrounding the park, which is very mountainous. It also builds a lot of suspense, especially since riders face backwards, because the riders can't see how close they are to the top. Eventually, the ride crests its lift hill, and as the ride follows up with a pre-drop, the seats begin to flip forward until the riders are face down during the ride's massive drop. Shortly before the bottom of this drop, the seats flip so that the riders face backwards again. This has gotta be one of the best and craziest drops on a roller coaster, simply because of how much the flipping sensation adds to this already ridiculous first drop. Following this drop, riders experience an inside Raven turn and the seats fully flip at the top of this element. Following this element, the riders, who are now essentially in a flying position kind of below the track, experience a unique 0G roll which really makes riders face more outward rather than being inverted. This element is followed by essentially an overbank turn and a sort of halfway 0G roll called a fly-to-lie, in which riders go from their flying position back into a lying position. Riders then experience an intense outside Raven turn, which briefly leaves them in a flying position again right before its even crazier final element. Riders experience an even faster paced fly-to-lie into the brake run, and as the train slams into its brake run, the seats move forward so suddenly that I found it to genuinely feel like I was being ejected from my seat despite the highly protective rider restraints. I mean, what a crazy finale that is. I mean, that kind of catches you off guard. I mean, it just looks like a flip into the brake run, but when you experience that, I mean, it is just wild. As the train crawls its way back into the brake run, riders struggle to comprehend the insanity they just experienced within such a short period of time. Now for my overall thoughts on Eejanaika. Cutting right to the chase, this is the best roller coaster I've ridden in my almost 20 years of being alive, as well as in my 11 years of being a coaster enthusiast. I mean, it's just so good, I just had to do another coaster review after about 3 years since the last one. Jokes aside, I never thought anything would top Steel Vengeance for me, which had previously been my favorite coaster since 2021. But somehow, Eejanaika did. Although it is a shorter ride experience, I think what happens in that duration pushes it to the absolute top. The way the ride flips throughout its layout is just ridiculous, and I think what adds to my bias is that I found it to run noticeably smoother and even crazier than my rides on X2 back in 2023. I think I have that ranked about like 18 overall, but this coaster is just somehow so much better. I'm led to believe that this is because SNS just perfected what aerodynamics created in 2002 with X2 and made an even more enjoyable ride experience. I will say that the ride is not butter smooth, particularly towards the end of it, just like that specific part, like specifically during its last couple of elements, but I do think the bit of joltiness during that part towards the end makes that finale just even crazier, so honestly, it's not really much of a complaint. I think that the way each element is incorporated into the layout makes it like a perfect layout. And it was so good that I found myself screaming wildly from the first drop to the brake run. And I was also just about speechless on that brake run when I experienced that intense and crazy finale, since I just genuinely could not fathom what I had experienced. It truly pains me that I couldn't get at least one more ride on this piece of perfection during my Fuji-Q visit, which, like, keep in mind, like, operations here are terrible. Like, I'm just gonna be straightforward. Like, especially on this coaster, like, the line was very long and, like, it took forever for trains to dispatch. But maybe I'll get to experience this ride again someday, since I do hope to return to Japan at some point in my life, and since this is my favorite coaster I've ridden, you know, I've got to ride it again at some point. So if you're a fan of crazy and intense coasters, this will not cease to at least be one of your favorites overall. SNS absolutely cooked with this ride by taking what Aero started and making it perfect. I think it's wild that a park like Fuji-Q Highland even has a coaster like this, and the ride also single-handedly boosts the park as a necessary coaster destination in Japan. Like, don't get me wrong, they have some other good coasters there, but given the park overall, I feel like Eejanaika just absolutely pushes the park like by an extreme amount. I would be hard pressed to find something better than this coaster in the world, but maybe something will surprise me someday, or maybe the coaster world will manage to beat this coaster with something new, which, by the way, this coaster is from 2006. Anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed this coaster review, and I hope to continue doing more of these in the future. I also hope to continue making more, like maybe some more countdown videos if y'all are interested, since my last one, my overall, my top 25 coaster ranking video, that one did pretty well. If y'all have any other coaster related content ideas, feel free to share them in the comments below. As always, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on post notifications for more theme park related content like this. I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye guys.